Okay, Hannah, sorry for the delay of these videos. I had to do a little research on slope because I remembered the equation, but I couldn't remember a lot of what was going on. So I had to do some work this morning and figure out some stuff and take some notes. So I sent you a PDF that has 6 pages on it. So and the pages say type of slope, and then the next one says type of slope, but if you notice it says sheet 1 and then sheet 2. So, and then the next one I think is finding the slope, sheet 1 and sheet 2, and then the last is graphing sheet 1 and sheet 2. So what we're gonna do today, or what I'm gonna do in these videos is I'm gonna go over with you sheet 1 of each of the pair, and then you're gonna do sheet 2 on your own, and those answers we'll go over when we Zoom. Make sure you have these printed out and in front of you because we're gonna go over like the first page of each of the sections together, and you can fill in the answers as we go through them. And then you can do, or we'll do the majority of them together, and then you can do the rest on your own, and that's what we'll go over. So before we get started, I just took some notes I wanna go over with you about slope and distance and everything that we've talked about kind of so far. So in our last time we met, we talked about the distance between 2 points, and that was like if you had a graph and this was a point and this was a point, figuring out what the distance between those 2 points were, because you can't necessarily count those points. You can't count the lines between those two points on a diagonal because there really are no lines. It's cutting through other lines. So by finding the distance or the difference between this and this, or the distance between the x's and the y's, squaring them, adding them, and then finding the square root, you're actually finding the distance, right? By making that right triangle there, you can use the Pythagorean theorem and figure out what that hypotenuse is. So just having this under your belt and knowing this, finding the slope is pretty simple because you know how to do like x1 and x2 and y2 and y1. So just the word itself, slope. Now it's like in real world, like the slope of something. If you're looking at a ramp or something that is formed diagonally, some sort of table, or if you're building something that has a ramp on it, the slope just is a measure of how steep something is, right? And to find slope, we really think about the change in the vertical direction, up and down, and the change in the horizontal direction. Okay? And we divide that. So we divide the change in the vertical direction by the change in the we divide the change in the vertical direction with the change in the horizontal direction. Another way of thinking about that is the rise over the run. Now the rise is obviously how far it goes up. So that's where we talk about the y, how far it goes up or down. It's the horizontal. The vertical, gosh. So the rise is the change in the vertical, right? So that's why we focus on the y's, because our y is vertical. And then we divide that by the run, and the run is the change in the horizontal. So then we have our x's down here. So M stands for slope. The x are the coordinates of the x1 and the y1. X1 and Y1 are the coordinates of the first point, and the X2 and Y2 right here are the coordinates of the second point. So this is how I set up slope. So I don't know why the variable M stands for slope, but M equals rise over run. The rise is the difference between the Y's. The rise is the difference between the Y's, and the run is the difference between the X's. And then you divide the Y's over the x's, or by the x's. So that's what slope is. But before we do that, we're going to talk about how to identify the types of slope. So there are 4 different types of slope, or types of lines, and they are positive, negative, 0, and undefined. So basically, to figure out the difference between a positive and a negative slope, you just look at the graph going from left to right. And when you're looking at a graph from left to right, a positive slope moves upward or up the graph from left to right. And a negative slope, if you look from left to right, moves downward from left to right. So just looking at 1 and 2, this number 1 is obviously positive because if you look from left to right, it moves upward. So this is positive. And then if you look at number 2, this is negative because if you look at the graph from left to right, it moves downward. And so this is negative. And then this third one right here is a horizontal line, right? So there is no slope. So we call this a zero slope here because it's just a flat line. So this is called zero slope. It's a flat line. So zero slopes can be identified when a line is horizontal or just flat. And then this one over here, number 4, is called an undefined slope. Again, there really is no slope here. It's a vertical line because all the points on the line have the same x coordinate, right? They all have the same x coordinate. It's all on this -2 x coordinate. And as a result, the formula, the m equals rise over run, has the denominator of 0. So if you divide anything by 0, which you cannot, it's undefined. So anything that is horizontal, we say it has a zero slope. Anything that is vertical, we call that undefined. You can't figure out the slope. So just going through these, we've got a horizontal line, so we know that is an example of a zero slope. We have from left to right, it going upward, so this is a positive slope. And then down here for number 7, if we're going from left to right, it's going upward. So again, this is positive. And then if you look at number 8, it is a vertical line all on the x coordinate of 4, so it's undefined. The denominator of it when we find slope would be have a denominator of 0, which you cannot divide by 0. And then if you look at this last one, going from left to right, it's going downward. So this is a negative slope. And this is important to know how to do because when you are graphing, if you are giving a slope and 1 point, you can graph a line knowing what the slope is. And you can find all the other points on that line knowing what the slope is if you have 1 point. But you've got to be able to know whether the line itself will be going negative or positive, or 0 or undefined. So you are going to do the second sheet on your own, and we'll go over your answers when we Zoom. The next thing that we're going to go over is actually finding the slope. So that's where my original notes come in when I'm talking about how you actually find the slope using 2 points on a line. So we're going to practice using our formula, m equals rise over run. And so that means m equals the y2 minus the y1 over the x2 minus the x1, okay? So for this one, we've got to find the points. So we've got, this is 2, 1, and this is 0, -3. All right, so we're going to say that this is 0.1, and this is let's say this is 0.1, and this is 0.2. All right, so we're going to fill in those numbers. So if this is 0.1, this is x1 and x2. So it's going to go down here. Or I'm sorry, this is x1 and x2. So down here we have x1, 0, minus 2. And then y1, -3, minus y2, 1. Okay, so now we can solve for this. -3 minus 1 is -4. over negative 2. And 2 negatives make a positive, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. And our answer is 2. So our slope for this is 2. And if you look at it, that means there's 2 squares, right? I go over 2. So the slope has a slope of 2. Am I right? I am. All right, let's do this one together. All right, so we've got our 2 points. And I'm going to go get a dry erase board. Might make it a little easier because we're going to have to do a lot of these together. All right, so number 2, I've got points of, what is this? 1, negative 3. And this one right here is negative 3, 2. Okay, so it doesn't really matter which one you choose to be 0.1 or 0.2, but just know that this is a negative slope. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is 0.1 and this is 0.2. And the reason why I chose this one over here to be 0.1 and to be 0.2 because I knew it was a positive slope. So I'm going from here to here. Where in this case, I'm going from this point to this point because I'm going from left to right. So I'm going to make that top number, or this top point, 0.1, and this bottom number 0.2. So then I'm going to use my formula, m equals, and if I say that this is 0.2, there's your y, so negative 3, and there's my y, y1 up there, minus 2, over, here's x2, that's 1, minus x1 is negative 3. So if I solve, I've got m, so this is negative 5 over 2 negatives make a positive, so that's 4. And then my slope equals, this is just 1 negative, so it stays negative, 1 1/4. So the reason why this ends up negative is because, even just looking at it, you know it's a negative slope. So my answer is 1 1/4. All right, let's do number 3. So my points here, now again, this is a positive slope because going from left to right, it is going upward, so I know that's positive. And so I'm gonna say that this point down here is negative 3, 4, and this point up here is 2, 3. And I'm gonna say that this is 0.1 and this is 0.2 because it's going from left to right. So let's fill in our equation. M equals the y's first, y2 minus y1. Oh, that's negative 4, right? Yeah, negative 4. Minus negative 4. And then x2 minus negative 3. So then I start to solve. These are all become positives, right? So m equals 7 over 5. M equals 1 2/5. Again, it's positive because I know I have a positive slope going from left to right. So 1 over 2/5 is your slope. That's how steep it is. So they're all pretty similar. If you look at like all of these lines, you see that they're all pretty similar, and these numbers are all pretty close. Like this obviously is a steeper line, and the steeper the line is, the greater the number, right? So you can see if you look at these two, they're pretty similar, right? How steep they are pretty similar, and those two fractions are pretty similar. So let's take a look at number 4. Now, just looking at this, you know, going from left to right, it goes downward, which means it is a negative slope. So I'm going to start with this. This one up here is going to be 0.1, and this will be 0.2. And so my points for 0.1, or my coordinate, my ordered pair for 0.1 is 0, 3, and this one down here is 4, 4. So I fill in my equation, m equals y2, 4 minus y3, and then x2 minus x1. So fill this out. This equals 1 over 4. So your slope should be negative. What did I do wrong? Oh, because this is negative 4. So this is y2 is negative 4. Sorry. So negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7 over 4. There's only one negative in my fraction, so my answer stays negative. And this is negative 1 3/4. So if you notice, this slope, even though it's negative, is a similar steepness as number 1, and it's pretty close. The answer itself is pretty close to it. All right, let's try this one. Now, this slope right here, or the steepness of this line, isn't as drastic as this one. So our number's gonna be less. Whether it's a fraction or a whole number, it's gonna be a little bit smaller. All right, so this is a positive slope because going from left to right, it's going upward. I'm gonna call this 0.1 and this is 0.2. So this is negative 2, 1, and this is 3, 2. All right, then I fill in my equation. M equals y2, which is 2, minus, and that's a negative 2. I don't know why I keep forgetting these negatives down here in quadrant 3. Minus y2. Oh, no, I want this to be, oh, no, that's right. Y minus y over x2 minus x2, x1. All right, m equals, these all become positive, so 2 plus 1 is 3 over 3 plus 2 is 5, so this isn't even a whole. Your slope is 3/5. And as you can see, it's not even one whole, right? And our line, our actual steepness is a little bit more shallow. It's not as steep as these. So the more steep your slope is, the larger your number is gonna be, or the larger the slope is. And the least steep, or the more shallow of a slope, the smaller the number. So this one right here looks like it's gonna be even less than this one. If you look at number 6. Now it is gonna be a negative slope because we're going from left to right. So I'm gonna call this 0.1 and this 0.2. You always wanna go from left to right. And this one right here is negative 4, 3, and this is 4, 1. So let's fill in your equation. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus y2. x2 minus, that is not 4, x2 minus y. How is this? Oh, because it's 2 positive negative. All right, so that should be right. And then m equals 2 over, these turn into a positive 8. So m equals 1/4 of a slope. And as you can see, 1/4 is even smaller than 3/5. And so the fact that this is even a more shallow line than this one, our fraction's even smaller than this one, or our slope is. All right, so I think, so let's do this last one because this is probably the steepest line we've worked with so far. So it should be even greater than this one. It should be over 2. Let's see if it is. Now it is a positive slope because if going from left to right, we're going upward. Our point is right here to here. So this is going to be point 1 and point 2. So this is 2, -4. And this is 4, 2. So we start with point 2, right? M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so I should have m equals 2 minus -4 over 4 minus 2. Let's see what happens. So this becomes positive, so that's 6 over 2, m equals 3. So our slope is even steeper here. It's even more than this first one. So the slope here is 3. All right, so it's a pretty simple equation. There's a lot of steps that go into it. You've got to understand, you got to know how to plot your points, right? How to read the points on a graph. You need to know whether it's a positive or negative slope based on going from left to right. So you know which points to make 1 and 2. And then you need to obviously know how to do your integers and then simple division and fractions. All right, so go ahead and do the rest of these, 8 and 9. And then why don't you go ahead and do these. It shouldn't take you very long. And it's just really good practice for using this equation. Do all of these. And then that brings us to this last one, which is using the slope and 1 point to actually graph lines on a coordinate grid. Okay, so there's a few things you need to know in order to do this. You need to know whether it's a positive or negative slope, and you need to know kind of your rise and your run. So the top, so knowing that this right here, I don't actually need to know this right here. I already wrote that point. All right, so knowing that this right here is where you're gonna start. Now, because this is a positive slope, you know from going from left to right, it's going to go upward, which means your point is gonna be somewhere over here, right? Because you're gonna need to go upward this way. So that means this is this top one's the rise and this is the run. So this is how you're gonna go horizontally, right? This is your y coordinate, or the top number is your y coordinate over your x coordinate, right? So 2 is what you're gonna either go up to or down to. Now in order to make your other point over here, you're gonna go down to, okay? And then 5 is your run. That's where you're going this way, left or right. Now knowing you need to have your point over here, you're gonna go this way, right? And my point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is gonna be right there, okay? And so then if you connected those 2 lines, or connected those 2 dots to make a straight line, you're gonna get a diagonal line, or you're gonna find the slope of the line going from left to right, which is positive, going upward from left to right, which is positive. All right, so let's try this one. This is a negative slope, and going from left to right, it's gonna go downward. So you know it's gonna be somewhere over here, right? And so knowing that it's rise over run, so how far you're gonna go up or down is 4. So I'm gonna go down because I need it to be over here. So down 4, right? And then over 7. Well, obviously I'm gonna go this way because I need it to end up down here, right? It's going, from left to right, it's going downward. So over 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It goes right there. And then if I connect those 2 lines, it looks like that. All right, now let's look at this one. Now 1/6, that's a pretty shallow slope. So my line's not gonna be very steep. It's gonna be pretty shallow. and it's a positive slope. And if it's a positive slope, that means going from left to right, it's going upward, which means it's got to be somewhere down here, right? So my top number is my rise, and my bottom number is my run, right? So my top number tells me how far up and down I'm gonna go, and my bottom number tells me how far to the left or to the right I'm gonna go. So because the y is 1, that means I have to go down 1, because I know I need to end up down here somewhere. I know I need to slope up to the right. And then it's over 6. Well, it's not gonna be over here because it's not going this way, right? It's going this way. So I go over 6, place my point right there, connect those two lines, and as you can see, this is a very shallow line. It's not a very steep slope because it's only 1/6. It's not very high. All right, let's do number 4. All right, so this is a negative slope, which means going from left to right, it needs to go downward. So your other point's gonna end up somewhere over here. 7/4, that's even a mixed number. That's gonna be -1 and 3/4, so almost 2. This is gonna be a pretty steep slope. All right, so 7 is my y, or my rise, and 4 is my run. So 7 is how far I'm going up and down, and 4 is how far I'm going to the left or the right. Now it's negative, so I need to go downward, right? So I'm gonna go down 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here, and then over 4, because I need it to go down this way. Over 4, it's right there. If I connect those two lines, I have a pretty steep slope, and it should look something like that. All right, this one right here is a positive slope, right? There's no negative in front of it, so I know it needs to go up this way, right? Now, 3/4 or 3/8 isn't even 1/2, so this isn't gonna be a very steep slope. Now remember, the top number is rise over run, so the 3 is how far I'm gonna go up or down. Now it's positive, so I need to go upward, 3, and then over 8. Now I know I'm gonna go to the positive 8 because I gotta go upward. It's a positive run. So there's 4, another 8, connect those lines, and that's not a very steep slope. This next one, 5/2, that's a pretty steep slope. That's 2 1/2, -2 1/2. Now going from left to right, it's negative, so I know it's going downward. So it's gonna be way down here somewhere. All right, my top number is my rise, my bottom number is my run. So 5 is how many I'm gonna go either up or down, and 2 is left to right. Now I know I need to end up down here, so I'm gonna go down and over. So I'm going down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 2. There's my point. Connect them, and that is a very steep slope. All right, so I'm hoping that you got the hang of this. Go ahead and email me or Google chat me if you have any questions about this, and I can go over a few of them. Go ahead and do the rest of these on this page, and then the ones on the next page. And we'll go over the remaining answers when we Zoom sometime this week. Enjoy!